Working with the Refine Edge tool has honestly made me question how much footage I really need to shoot on green screen anymore. I understand that sounds like a little bit of an exaggeration, but I really do find this tool rather impressive. So let's explore how to use this tool by double-clicking our Refine Edge composition. In the timeline, you want to make sure that the header pre-comp is selected and then right-click on that layer. Since it's a pre-comp, I want to make sure that it opens in the Layer Control panel, so I'll just hit Open Layer. Now in the Layer panel, make sure your magnification is set to 100%. So I'll click on the pull down and enable 100%. Now so we can see the scene better, press the tilde key, which is just under the escape key. You can press the spacebar to grab the hand tool and then left click and drag to reposition. Now to grab the rotor brush tool, we'll go up to our tool panel, and on the right side of the tool panel you'll see the rotor brush. Now the Refine Edge tool and the rotor brush tool work together. So you need to use the rotor brush tool to create your initial selection. I'm going to hold down the Command key on my Mac. You can hold down Control on Windows and left click and drag off to make the brush size larger. You can drag down to make it smaller. Just make sure you're holding down Command or Control anytime you want to make a change to your brush size. Now you can just paint inside our person to go ahead and create our initial rotor brush selection. If you want to add to the selection, you don't need to go all the way to the edges. Just click relatively close to the edge and the rotor brush should do a pretty decent job of grabbing the selection. Now, in this area here, where there's an open area behind your ponytail, this will require a little bit more detail. So I'll make the brush a little smaller and hold Option or Alt as I'm clicking and dragging. This will subtract part of the selection. Now the fact that it's covered up some of the hair is not that big of a deal. We just want to subtract parts of this image from this area. As part of the process of using the roto brush, just making sure that you have your initial selection. Now this is relatively good enough. This is when we want to use the Refine Edge tool. So if you click and hold on your roto brush, you can open Refine Edge. Now with this tool you want to use as large a brush as possible to paint along the edge, but you don't want to have a huge edge as you're painting. I'm going to press the spacebar and just move up to the top of our scene here, and then I will increase the size of the brush. Now we can just click and draw along the edge of her hairline here to create a nice Refine Edge section. Even though it's outside my roto brush selection, I can go ahead and paint this. Just start drawing on my Refine Edge area. See all the detail that I'm actually getting back into the image using Refine Edge. I could draw a little bit down the front of her face here as well, and it'll just pick up all the fine details. This area here in the front, I know there is an extra hair there, so I'll just go ahead and hold down Option and click and drag, just like we did with the roto brush tool to deselect that extra selected area. And on occasion, just like with the roto brush, you'll need to make the brush size a little bit smaller. Now, you can continue doing this command as you move around the different sections of the hair, either adding to or subtracting from your brush strokes. If you find you make a mistake, just press Command Z or Control Z to undo. Now I'm just going to get the last little section of hair here around the outside, and then I'll draw this tool around the inside section as well. Now notice on the inside section it's not functioning exactly the way that I would expect. So I'll just press Control Z or Command Z and then draw a smaller brush, and then we can just click and drag inside this area here. Now notice it's done a little bit better job just drawing the selection of the hair, selection of the edge of the hair. We can do the same thing around the edge of our selection up here in this upper area as well. In order to preview the Refine Edge, you want to go ahead and press Page Down. Each time you press Page Down, it'll take a second to recompute, but it will figure out where the edge of the hair and the other areas are. The mode that we're working in right now is known as X-ray mode. If you look down in the bottom left part of your layer panel, you'll see I can toggle X-ray mode on and off. When I switch to this other mode, it's actually going to preview the alpha boundary through that tool. So if we want to just look at the alpha, go ahead and click on the toggle alpha section. Here you'll notice it's an excellent job of pulling that key. You can scrub up and down in the timeline if you want to actually get a preview as to how well this is working. you may find that you need to go back and make adjustments, like up here in this area. This functions just like using the roto tool natively. Also, just like using the roto tool, we have our propagation frames down here with the span area. You want to make sure as you go down your timeline making adjustments to the edge that the span area is increasing. Anytime you position your current time indicator outside that span, the roto brush and the refine edge tool will stop continuing to function. Now once you have a basic selection of frames that you'd like, then you need to go back to your refine edge options and make adjustments. I'm going to press the tilde key on my keyboard one more time and open my FX Control panel. Under FX Controls, once you've enabled Refine Edge, you have the same adjustment options that you had as the roto brush map. We can smooth, feather, contrast, shift edge, or reduce the chatter. Now the chatter is created as you move from frame by frame throughout the rest of your timeline. A lot of times I found I can reduce chatter to smoother, and this will be a more detailed selection of our roto brush refine edge area. When it's smoother, it takes longer to process, but I found a lot of times it gives me slightly better results. Now if you actually want to see what your map looks like, you can change your channel view from alpha back to RGB, and here it's actually showing me how the cutout is appearing in my layer panel. Now I could go back to my composition area and create a layer solid underneath our layer to get a better idea, but I think you understand how the general features of this tool work. When you've finished using the roto brush and refine edge tools, and you're definitely sure that you want to go ahead and output what you've created, you need to make sure to freeze the frames within the span. So I'm going to jump back to the layer panel here for a second and show you the freeze button. Make sure you enable freeze before you finish your process. Now once you've frozen the frames, you're actually ready for output. Just remember, whatever format you're choosing, you want to output with an alpha channel. Then you can bring that footage back in and apply some color correction, and it's going to take a lot less processing power to process the finished result.